What was that?
Hello folks and welcome back to another video. So the last year or so has been a real bumpy road for us PC gamers. Most of the AAA games that released on PC came out with horrific ports and ran slower than my 80-year-old grandma on a wheelchair. It's absolutely amazing how the quality of recent PC ports have exponentially crashed just as GPU prices have exponentially risen. Talk about return on your investment, huh? Among other things that have drastically ballooned up in recent titles is the incredibly high RAM usage in almost all modern AAA games on PC that released in the last year or so. Only a couple of years back, 16GB of RAM was all you would need for a smooth gaming experience. Yes, 32GB was good to have, but it was merely a luxury as 16GB did more than enough to handle the latest games. I know you can always download more RAM, but for unlucky folks like me, coming to 2023 and beyond, is 16GB of RAM really enough for modern AAA games on PC? Even if they are well optimized, which again is rarer than my boss praising me for doing a good job. So in today's video, we will try to find this answer and see just where exactly 16 gigs of system memory leaves us in 2023. I have tested 10 newest AAA titles from the past 1 year and did a short benchmark at 1080p and 1440p and show just how much RAM each game uses. My main objective will be to find out what is the bare minimum RAM you would need to run these games at least at 1080p and if your GPU permits at 1440p without the stuttering that less system memory causes. So without any further ado, let's dive into the benchmarks. First up, we have the most recent mess in PC port optimization, the incredibly looking The Last of Us Part 1 remake. This is a notorious title for extremely high RAM and VRAM usage, and it just chokes your system to the last drop of its capacity. As you can see, this game uses more than 16 gigs of RAM even at 1080p, and just blows the machines with 16 gigs of RAM out of the water. The PC port of this game is so well made that it uses more RAM at 1080p than at 1440p. Logic? Well, that's not in the menu here. So if you want to play The Last of Us Part 1 on PC, you better upgrade to 32GB of memory at the very least. Next up, we have Resident Evil 4 Remake, a game that's completely opposite to The Last of Us Part 1 in terms of PC optimization. It plays and runs brilliantly on PC. At 1080p, we can see the game is just on the edge of 16GB of RAM. Mind you, this benchmark was run when no background tasks were running on the machine. But if you are like me who likes to open some Chrome tabs or some other tasks in the background, the RAM usage will easily go beyond 16GB and will introduce stutters. At 1440p, even without nothing else running in the background, the RAM usage easily goes beyond 16 gigs for Resident Evil 4 Remake. Next up, we have another award-winning PC port, the Callisto Protocol. This game lagged, stuttered and limped its way onto PC when it released back in December. With excellent graphics and the worst gameplay in recent memory, this is surely one of the games to forget. With subsequent patches, the game is finally playable on PC. Once again, we can see at 1080p, the maximum RAM usage of the system is just a tad bit below 16GB, and as soon as we crank up to 1440p, the RAM usage jumps to almost 18GB, rendering the 16GB configurations useless. The game is still a stutterfest in some areas, and a limited amount of RAM than what's actually required will only increase this stutter and make the game even more unplayable. Next we have one of the best looking games and one of the best games of 2022, A Plague Tale Requiem. This game looked absolutely gorgeous in every possible way and proved to be extremely heavy to run even on decent PCs. However, I wouldn't call this a bad port as the graphics it showcased was really worth the power it demanded. The RAM usage is once again beyond 16GB. Even at 1080p, 16GB RAM won't just cut it for this game. For both 1080p and 1440p, this game will play best if you have more than 16GB of RAM in your system. We move on to another award-winning PC port work that run like a hot pile of garbage on PC at launch, Hogwarts Legacy. Once again, an excellent game let down by piss-poor PC optimization. However, the game is in a much better shape now after 2 months of its release. I have made a detailed video about its performance now. Do check that out on my channel. Coming to the RAM usage, and once again we witness some serious shortcomings of 16GB memory configurations. This game, like The Last of Us Part 1, just blasts through 16 gigs of RAM and end up using almost 22 to 24 GB of RAM at both 1080p and 1440p. Just as we saw in The Last of Us Part 1, for some weird reason it uses more RAM at 1080p than at 1440p. But whatever be the case, it's way beyond your standard 16 gigs of RAM. So for this game again, 32 GB of RAM is an absolute necessity to get a smoother experience on PC. No amount of wizardry will save this one on 16 GB systems. Let's look at some more recent AAA games before we reach a conclusion.
Scherzo.
¿Puedo escuchar?
So, up here. Move.
Todos los vehículos avancen.
Están moviendo.
Push up. Clear.
Secure this house. Go for a son.
Thoughts are moving fast.
We move faster. Take the door.
Would you care for some more soda, comrade?
Sure, thanks. Looks like another bot got stuck in a tree.
So there it is, folks. As you can clearly see, this is the end of the road for 16 GB RAM configurations to be called the sweet spot for AAA gaming. It's really not. Even in well-optimized AAA games, having a mere 16 GB of RAM can leave your system memory gasping for air. Maybe if you play only esport titles or indie games, 16 GB is still fine. But as soon as you start going into the latest AAA games, 16 GB just doesn't cut it in 2023. And with studios and publishers finally embracing the next generation of consoles, expect memory usage to only rise in future titles. Going by the current scenario, we have finally come to a time where 32 GB of RAM will be the sweet spot for AAA gaming on any graphic settings or resolutions. So get your begging wallets ready. I do hope you found this video useful, and if you did, do leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel. I hope to bring more such videos for you in the future. Take care folks, and I will catch you on the next one.